fudge or not to fudge? That's been the question that's all over Twitter for some reason. I don't know where it started out. I know that I'm on Twitter a lot, so I usually have a good idea about where things are originating, but for some reason everyone's delving into this debate. And for my Open Friday this week on the vlog, I went online, I asked what folks wanted me to talk about, and Brendan LaSalle said fudge. Specifically the fudging of dice rolls. And so let's get this out of the way now. Let's just, dispense with any kind of any kind of delay here. Yeah, I fudge die rolls. All right. I'm Judge James and I fudge the die rolls. And I know what a lot of folks are saying, like how it ruins the game, or it takes away, I guess, player agency maybe, and whatever. If you've played in a long-term game of mine, and most people who have enjoyed it, yeah, you've been on the receiving end of fudging from time to time, and your character has been influenced by a bit of dice manipulation, and either behind my actual GM screen or the virtual screen. And you know what? Sorry, I have allergies today. It's been for your betterment, if that's the case. I can promise you that. Now, before all you cranky old gamers who are like shouting at the sky constantly decide to come after me with pitchforks, let me say I only fudge dice rolling in like a very, very specific instance, and that's typically to prevent the untimely death or demise or derailment of a campaign where the death or demise of a character or the whole party would be ruinous and would cause the end of that campaign. I will never, ever, ever fudge dice to hurt a character. There's no point in why a GM, DM, judge would ever do something like that, unless they're just a vindictive asshole. And they're trying to get back at their players. That's not something I would ever do. But, I gotta say this. It's kind of funny that my friends, you kind of consider me as being this character killer, and that I've killed so many PCs over the years. And that's, the reality is I always root for the characters at the table. I am a fan of those characters for the most part. There are a few that I kind of wish would die occasionally, but for the most part, I'm a fan of whoever's there. So save for very specific campaigns, usually Dungeon Crawl Classics or Mutant Crawl Classics or something else that's like kind of old school, where I've pretty much shared with the players that I'm going to let the dice fall where they may, without any kind of punches pulled. I've been known to blunt the impact of some dice in order to give the PCs a chance to make it out of a situation alive, or at least not too horribly scathed. And I need to note that even with some modest fudging, there's no way to prevent the death of a character if the player of that character has just decided they're going to go all in, and no matter what, they're gonna seek out their own glorious end. So why do I do it? Why do I fudge dice? Honestly, because it's my belief that in certain stories, the game master, the dungeon master, the judge is the shepherd of the story. And sometimes these stories that we tell, they require the characters in the game to be there. Like for my Talus game right now, I'm writing the first series of adventures around backstory from the characters. So if Astray the Minotaur, played by my friend Maitre, dies, that's going to screw up a bit of the beginning of my campaign. And I know that she's pretty excited that she's in a campaign where the character backstory actually is meaningful. So if something goes poorly and her character were to die in the second game, that she made it through the first game, that sucks. Not only does it suck for my tray, it sucks for me, because I've put work into this. I've put some effort into this. And so with campaigns built with backstory in mind, or in campaigns, honestly, where certain player characters are just really, really popular, I think it's best to at least consider blunting the impact of a couple die rolls. If the dice continue to fall where they may, and that character is just luck has foretold their demise, it is what it is. If the character stays in combat or is still like just sort of begging for death, I'm not going to stop whatever happened there. But just some examples of how like popular player character death or the death of popular player characters has ruined campaigns for me. Two in particular that I really liked. Specifically, I had an alternative campaign in the early 2000s set in a cyberpunk world that I had created, and a player favorite, this character Tavi, who was a free agent, was killed by taking too much mortal damage from an arcane archer. If I want to believe what happened was that he was out of wounds, out of stun damage points, out of wound damage points, and he was just taking mortal damage, and he was gone, and that was that. And that it was not a very exciting encounter. I believe they were like in a street fight, and like elves showed up. Again, it was a weird cyberpunk thing. It was pretty much my take on Shadowrun, and that was that. That character was gone. Tavi was such a beloved character in that game, and my friend Jamie's next character was nowhere near the life of the party that Tavi was. The campaign went one more session and died. Another instance, my friend, and this has to do with an artifact that I think in general is a campaign ruiner. My cousin Sean was playing a fly that's flying up my nose. My cousin Sean was playing a gnome bard in our 3.5 Eberron campaign. And there was a deck of many things, and he drew from it the campaign killer, and he drew death, and he had to fight death, and he almost won, but he died, and that was like the second to last game of a 2-year Eberron campaign, but his character was so much like the heart and soul of the group, it was like having the heart ripped out. So yeah, I do hold the belief that at some point in the game, in a campaign, an ongoing campaign, the core characters are key to the story. And that their permanent loss should not be tethered as much to random dice rolling. I also think that since in long-term campaigning, where it is story-based, I have shifted as I've gotten older and feel that if the player character wants to see the demise of the character and push for that, that needs to be a conversation with the game master and have that discussion to give the player a little agency on that front. But yeah, as much as I say as much, like, not be tethered as much to random rolling, using the words as much, well, I'll flip a die here and there. Again, if those players keep pressing, I will press. I think Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics are exceptions for the most part. I think there's a lot of things in there that are insta kills, but a lot of things that depend on the luck mechanic. And I kind of feel like the luck die, the luck mechanic in DCC and MCC, it makes the game more survivable for already. You don't need to have as much of that fudging possibly. Although, yeah, I've fudged a couple dice in DCC. It's way more rare. But for long-term campaigns, yeah, it's happened. I'm not proud of it. I know it's a risk. It kind of breaks the whole risk and reward, feel of DCC. But again, I've killed a lot of characters in Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics. So, just a couple weeks ago, my friend Mark's character, he croaked with his 3 intelligence rover trying to manipulate a reactor. Yeah, that character is begging for death. That's my rant on the topic. That's it. That's how I feel about fudging in general. And if you don't want to play with me anymore because you found I fudge dice rolls, I guess I'll just have to accept it and find some new players. So, yeah. All right, well, thanks for watching, and, play nice, kiddos, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Oh, I should say, if you're going to comment on this, please be respectful in the comments when you leave them below, all right? This is one of those things that people have gotten snippy about. Let's not get snippy, okay? Let's be cool people, all right? See ya.